Hi there. I'm so excited to welcome you to the Arthritis Life podcast, where we share arthritis life stories and tips for thriving with autoimmune arthritis. My name is Cheryl Crow, and I am passionate about helping people navigate real life with arthritis beyond joint pain. I've been living with rheumatoid arthritis for 20 years, and I'm also a mom, occupational therapist, video creator, support group leader, and I created the Rheum to Thrive self-management program. I am so excited to help you live a more empowered life with arthritis. We're going to cover everything from kitchen life hacks to navigating the healthcare system to coping with friends who just don't get it. Seriously, no topic is going to be off limits on this podcast. My interviewees and I share our honest stories of how chronic illness affects our lives. This includes discussions about mental health, sex, shame, pregnancy, body image, advocacy, self-acceptance, and so much more. You'll hear stories from all ends of the spectrum, from a person who's living in medicated remission from psoriatic arthritis to somebody living with severe mobility restrictions and severe pain from rheumatoid arthritis. You'll hear how people manage their conditions in different ways, like medications, mindfulness, movement, social support, work accommodations, and so much more. You'll also hear from rheumatology experts who just get it. We'll dive deep into the science behind chronic pain and what's the latest evidence for lifestyle changes that can help you thrive with arthritis, including exercise, sleep, nutrition, stress reduction, and more. This is your chance to sit down and chat with a friend who's been there. Ready to figure out how to manage your arthritis life? Let's get started. All right, I'm so excited today to have Alice Getchell on the Arthritis Life podcast. Welcome, Alice.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Yeah, I'm glad to have you. And can you let the audience know, just as a quick introduction, where do you live and what is your relationship to arthritis?
Yeah, I live in Minneapolis in the suburbs. I have seronegative rheumatoid arthritis and Sjogrens. I have several other conditions. I think we all do, you know.
Yeah, they say autoimmune conditions don't like to travel alone. So they like to bring little friends like Sjogren's and other things. And I mean, I think, one of the most interesting parts of people's story often is just how they got diagnosed. Because it can be a really simple process or it can be a very complicated one. So can you let the listeners know a little bit, how did you get diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis? What were some of your first symptoms and what was that process like?
Okay. Well, I was diagnosed in December of 2020.
Oof.
So it's been 4 years, a little over. It was like initially it was a shock because I had been to my primary care, I guess it was, had tested me a couple of times in the previous years because I was questioning things about what my hands were doing, what they looked like, how they functioned. And my primary care tested me at least twice and said, no, you don't have it. The markers aren't there. Well, lo and behold, my eye doctor finally suggested, I think you should see a rheumatologist. So I did at Mayo Clinic. Um, they diagnosed me by first x-rays and then suspicious from that did an MRI and confirmed in that rheumatologist's opinion, which I totally agree with now, rheumatoid arthritis. My eye doctor had also suggested Sjogren's. She agreed with that. The thing is about that initial visit, she kind of elaborated on things I didn't want to know, like what some of the um, complications or conditions that could develop over time, which was like lung problems, and then she mentioned lymphoma. Well, that just set my husband off. He was with me, and it was not a happy scene. So I don't know. I guess that's all I can think of right now.
Oh, no, I mean, that's a really, it's obvious, it's very common to feel like scared and overwhelmed. Like on the one hand, it sounds like you were suspecting that it's rheumatoid arthritis, and unfortunately, it is a common story that primary care doctors sometimes think that rheumatoid arthritis is exclusively diagnosed with blood work, which it's not. It's considered a diagnosis of exclusion, meaning they take multiple factors into account, primarily your personal medical history, your subjective report of your symptoms, like not just, oh, do your hands hurt or not? What's the pattern? In rheumatoid arthritis, it's usually worse in the morning, stiffer in the morning, better with activity throughout the day. And then they do look at blood work and imaging. And then what's the fourth one? Family history, personal medical history, and their physical exam. They physically touch your joints, and the person most skilled to do that is the rheumatologist, not the primary care doc. Anyway, I mean, of course, the primary care doc's job is to, try to funnel you to the right specialist. But long story short, I can imagine it was a mixed emotion, because on the one hand, you're like, I think I do have something, but then they're saying I don't, and then you finally get to the rheumatologist and they say you do. So
Yeah, I was shocked because I don't know, I just having that confirmation shocked me. And of course it was distressing, but yeah.
yeah, understandably, and it's so hard. Like we have this in the Room to Thrive alumni group that we're part of. And we're going to talk about that more later, but we have this common saying of like knowledge is power, but ignorance is bliss, you know? So on the one hand, it's like the doctor has to explain to you that there are some serious possible complications, but it's definitely can be shocking. And honestly, I don't remember having that conversation, because in my head, I only remember the validation of the diagnosis, because my story was different, that I felt very medically like gaslit. So yours example and mine just go to show that no two diagnoses conversations are ever the same, right? So, I'm glad you had your husband with you though. And so you got this diagnosis. What's been your treatment journey? It's kind of hard to summarize, I know, but and first of all, I have to say I'm sorry you got diagnosed during the early days of the pandemic. That just must have been really, really rough. So, like what treatments have you tried, and what's gone well and not well from that?
Right. Well, initially, methotrexate, uh, initially pills, but then they really wanted me to get on injections right away. So made that transition. So I've been on those all 4 years. Then as methotrexate didn't seem to be doing all that much, we started with the biologics, and to shorten it, I've been through 8 different ones. There aren't any of them that I felt really did help at all. I did get to one, Sjogrens, which I did get relief from for about 10, 11 months. And then it seemed to just either quit or tapered off, not helping anymore. Tried infusions of rituximab, and I felt worse on that. I really did. And then, of course, because it's 6 months before you can get a next infusion, um, that was too long to me to wait and see my rheumatologist. When I finally did, she agreed with me that let's try something. So we're going back on Xeljanz because that gave me the most relief that I'd ever had. And um, being off from it for a period of time, we thought maybe it would now be like starting it brand new and that it would help. But I've come to realize, and then talking in our support group, that it's going to be a journey of probably trying new drugs, and they're going to possibly wane away, try something new. And it may be like that for the whole rest of the time that I'm, here. So,
Yeah, yeah, it's hard to predict too, because I actually was looking at some of the research and I was really surprised to learn that 50% of people with rheumatoid arthritis are actually able to have well-controlled disease on methotrexate alone. So there's a lot of people out there who are actually doing well on just one medication, but in the support groups and the people who are seeking more support tend to reflect the more either severely affected, population or people who are experiencing some of the kind of what they call treatment resistant rheumatoid arthritis or difficult to treat rheumatoid arthritis. And it's just hard at the beginning of your journey to know which camp you're going to fall into. So certainly I think you're unfortunately on the end of the spectrum of like, difficult to treat RA. And I think that's why we still need so much funding for more research and better treatments for RA. Because there's about, depending on the study you look at, about 5 to 20% of people with rheumatoid arthritis don't experience that huge leap of relief on the current medicines. So, like what helped you cope during that time? It's so hard to get your hopes up for each new medicine and then kind of dashed. It's like kind of it's a for me at least it's sometimes been I'm lucky because each medicine I've been on has worked for at least a few years before it stops working. Unlike yours sounds like it was much quicker because I'm on my fifth medicine in 22 years. So you've already been on 8 in 5 years. Again, not to play suffering Olympics. I'm just saying you've experienced the roller coaster of hope more than I have. So what has helped you cope with all that? If you have ever felt completely lost or utterly alone while trying to navigate real life with rheumatic disease, listen up. I am here for you. I created an educational program to help you go from overwhelmed to confident, supported, and connected in a matter of weeks. And it's called Rheum to Thrive. After earning a master's in occupational therapy and completing hundreds of hours of additional training, I created a step-by-step guide to help you truly thrive with rheumatic disease. This is the only program I know of that's designed to improve quality of life for people living with inflammatory, autoimmune forms of arthritis, like rheumatoid arthritis, psoriatic arthritis, ankylosing spondylitis, non-radiographic axial spondyloarthritis, Sjogren's disease, and more. During the self-paced lessons, you'll learn how to manage pain and fatigue, cope with stress, navigate relationships, and continue doing the things that matter to you and bring you joy. The goal is really to help you improve your quality of life and learn how to thrive with your rheumatic disease right now, rather than waiting for a distant day when it might be cured or healed. I really created the down-to-earth, practical, heartfelt resource I wish I had had when I was first diagnosed at age 20. If you want even more in-depth support, you can join the 12-week Rheum to Thrive virtual support group, where you'll be surrounded by people who actually get what you're going through, people who will provide the encouragement, validation, and support that you deserve. Each group is expertly moderated, so you don't have to worry about the kind of misinformation that spreads like wildfire in the free-for-all social media groups. If you're on the fence, don't just take my word for it. Here's what Katie had to say in March 2023. I was lost and overwhelmed with my RA diagnosis. It felt overwhelming to know what to read, what to do, how to spend my energy trying to research on the internet. Rheum to Thrive did that for me. It's been like getting a crash course in my diagnosis along with a community who gets it. To see all the details, including the dates for the next support groups, go to the link in the show notes or bit.ly/thriveroom with a capital T and capital R. You can also just email me anytime at info@myarthritislife.net. And don't delay if you're interested, because each group is capped at 16 people or less in order to make a small, intimate group atmosphere. Thanks so much for your time, and I can't wait to get started with the next groups. And I can't wait for those of you who are interested in the self-paced option to go ahead and join that at any time. Bye-bye for now.
Well, I'd have to say, well, primarily finding your Rheum to Thrive program. That initially just, I can't stress enough how important that was to me, because it really validated me, as you'd said earlier, and finding out, realizing I'm not alone. There are other people out there who understand, because so many times maybe family members or friends just don't get it.
Yeah.
I I won't tell any stories about that, but there were some. Um, well, I did a lot of reading and researching RA because that's what I do. I want information, but I had to force myself to take it in small doses because it's easy to get overwhelmed with everything you read. Um, uh, so I don't know. I guess those are the things that helped me the most. In the beginning, the first thing that really helped was finding a great rheumatologist. What was difficult was trying to just slog through all these medications, trying to find the right one, and learning that RA is lifelong. I have great admiration. I don't know if I can think of enough adjectives, but for those of you who have lived with this for the majority of your life, I have to say I'm grateful that I wasn't diagnosed until later in my life. At the same time, there were years when I didn't understand what was going on. So, yeah, I guess that's it.
Yeah, yeah, no, and I think you touched on a lot of the really important tools, like in my coping toolbox too, which are one, like finding a good partnership with a rheumatologist. I think that's very key, especially if your case is more complex and you're needing to make lots of decisions about meds and stuff like that. And then finding valid sources of information. You said you did a lot of reading, and I know people have different levels of like medical literacy and just general literacy. And unfortunately, there's so much misinformation out there about all autoimmune conditions. So being able to find that is key. And then having support, social support, whether that's in the form of in-person relationships, online communities like we have with our Room to Thrive community. For those are three huge, huge emotional coping tools. And so I'm glad. How did you find the group? I always like to know how people found the program because I want to make sure I'm getting the word out.
Yeah.
You
Well,
remember?
I also have to say that I found, and I don't know how I found this person, but a quote unquote RA coach. I don't know if that's even the right word, but I wasn't totally happy with the whole process with that person. But
Mm-hmm.
I have to say, I think I probably just in searching online saw your program and the little overview that is there. And
Mm-hmm.
I thought this might be it. And it totally was it. So it's been my
Yeah.
major source. Yeah.
That's so, no, I feel really, I often think about how I initially envisioned making this program. I started thinking of it in 2019. And I was imagining it being in person in Seattle, where I live. And it was only because of the pandemic that I did it online. And I'm so grateful that, I mean, I'm not grateful for the pandemic, obviously, but given that it had to happen, I'm glad that it led me to doing it online because then I'm able to reach people and help people like you, and not just me helping you, but also people around the globe through the program can connect to each other. We have people in South Africa, someone in Japan, someone in India. It's hard with the time differences sometimes, but around the US and England and everywhere else, who've been able to, we have this, even though we might live in different places, maybe have different religions or different, ages, we all connect on this one crucial thing, which is that having inflammatory arthritis. Um, did anything surprise you when you joined the group, just out of curiosity, like the support group part or the other people in the group or?
Well, I don't know. I'm not sure that I was surprised, but happy
Mhm.
because I could see the age ranges. I was glad to see other people in my age group, um,
Mhm.
but throughout, and people that had it much longer, because everyone had such personal experiences that were helpful to
Yeah.
hear what worked for other people, all kinds of tips, and just hearing other people's stories, which helped make a connection to the people in the group just beyond hearing someone talk. It's
Mm-hmm.
just, it feels so personal, even though it's online, it feels so personal, and happy to be there.
Yeah. No, and another dimension I would just add to that is that I think it's also therapeutic as a member of the group to lend that support to others, right? To give, like, you're an active member. You're not only receiving support when you share your story, but you're in a position where you get to communicate support to the other members, and that can feel, and I think having people in different age ranges in particular I really like, because, like, I mean, maybe this is a stereotype or something, but people who've lived longer often have wisdom that young people don't, right?
True.
Not always, but
Yeah, yeah, I'll agree with that.
yeah, like we have people in their 20s, like somebody who's just completing college and like looking into, what career should I do? And like someone like you who's lived a little longer can give, lend support and on that. And then on the vice versa, maybe those of us who are a little older feel like maybe we're a little fatigued sometimes, and the younger people, even though they have inflammatory arthritis, sometimes they have a little more energy or, pep or something. And so we all can support, each other. And it's been one thing I didn't anticipate when I started it is how many people would bond and share information over their secondary diagnoses or their like comorbidities. So we've ended up talking about Sjogren's a lot more than I expected, only because so many people in the group have Sjogren's as well as, rheumatoid arthritis or psoriatic arthritis. And I have to say, if you had asked me in 2019 what Sjogren's was, I would have just thought what the average healthcare worker thinks, which is that it's just dry eyes and maybe dry mouth. I didn't know it was systemic autoimmune condition, just like rheumatoid arthritis, and it affects all the membranes and moisture producing membranes in your body, all your GI tract, everything. And like I'm telling you, as if you don't know, but just listen to people and people listening. There's also that bonding, or there's people in the group who've had shared experiences either with like cancer or with endocrinology or issues with thyroid. There's just so many ways we can connect. So I'm glad that you're a part of the group. And the other thing I wanted to ask you about, we always talk a little bit before the recording about what you as the interviewee would like to share about. And you said you wanted to share about what it was like navigating RA while trying to maintain my desire to persevere and adapt to what was a changing landscape. First of all, that's very poetic. And what can you tell me a little more what you mean by that and what that was like?
Yeah, well, I'll try. Well, it was important to me. It's always been, I guess, true for myself of how I approach things. I want to learn as much as I can, and I want to stick with it, learning. I want to know more, continue to learn, continue to adapt, and find new ways of doing things that I can't do anymore. And it's always hard to let go of things that you can't do anymore, because maybe, to your point of living longer, that there were many things in my life that were very important to me and I couldn't do anymore, can't possibly. And accepting that was just very difficult. But learning to adapt, learning what I had to absolutely let go of, that was part of the process. That was part of the process. So, um, initially it was scary and I wasn't really happy with the diagnosis, of course, but it, it it's been actually a wonderful learning experience. That's kind of a odd way to put it, but there's so much in our lives that can change and we don't know what comes next. So I don't know if that fully answers the question, but I I just wasn't one to give up, I guess.
I really love that word perseverance and the other word adapting. And can you, if you can think, I hate to put you on the spot, but can you share any examples of like an activity or something that you had to adapt, or vice versa, one that you had to let go of maybe?
Well, primary is I'm an amateur musician, and I have a lot of instruments that I've played over the years.
Mm,
Had to let go of almost all of them. And
wow.
there are 6 or 7. I can still play my instrument that is the closest to me in my heart, which is the auto harp. And anyone that doesn't know what that is, it's sort of like a zither, if anyone's ever seen those, but it's
Mhm.
kind of a different thing. But at any rate, um, I'm still playing that. I play as much as I am able. On pain days, of course not. But I am trying to revive my piano playing, which is um, I've been playing my whole life, ever since I was 5. So that was pretty important to me. And it's been very hard to let go of that. I'm still struggling with letting go. But again, like you said, adapting, you just find new ways of doing things that surprise you, actually, that I didn't know I could think of a way to change this or do this differently. So that
Mhm.
applies to, things every day around the home. Like an electric can opener when I
Yeah.
can't do the hand crank anymore, but it's very cool because it's runs on batteries. You just set it on top of the can and it does the whole work, and then you turn it off and the can opens. It's, to me, miraculous
Yeah, 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 yeah.
technology that we didn't have before. Um, and
So true.
what's the other thing? There's something else. Uh, well, if I think of it, I'll let you know.
Yeah. No, no, no. I'm sure. I love that point about how you become so much more well versed in adaptation and over time. And it's like you think of creative solutions that you wouldn't even have thought of before. And in a way, like you're just on autopilot. Like before you get diagnosed with a chronic illness, you just go about your life in the way you always have, right? And then when you get that diagnosis, you have to kind of reevaluate. And this is me being an occupational therapist and a patient. You have to creatively think through, okay, like just yesterday I was having a hard time opening the gas cap on my car in Washington State where I am, you do it yourself. I have a aid for it, like a little gadget, but I happen to be driving not my car's in the shop, so I had a different one. And I was like, okay, like I don't have a gadget with me. I don't have anything I could turn into a gadget. So instead of pinching with like my thumb and my pointer finger, I was like, can I use both hands and use like the palm of my hands to do it? And so it's like that creativity, like I don't know. I think before I would have been like, okay, well, I guess I just can't do it. Or I'd have to ask someone for help, which is totally fine to ask for help. There's no problem with that. But sorry, what's more important is talking about music because I think it is the things that are close to your heart that have to do with your identity and that are there's something so primal about music. I mean, I remember learning in OT school about how, there are times people can have strokes in certain parts of the brain where they can still sing, but they can't speak, right? Like regular sentences or vice versa. Like a different part of our brain that we use specifically for music, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
um, and it's not one that these instruments, like a lot of things we can adapt, right? There are things you can adapt. I saw this the other day, an OT occupational therapist posted a cool adaptation for a guitar for somebody who has like low hand strength and mobility. But there are other things that are harder to adapt, like a piano or like hitting a drum with your hands, like stuff like that. So, do you think it was just like time that allowed you to let go of some of these things, or um, not let go, but maybe put them on pause for now until there's like a miracle cure?
Yeah, I'd say that's true. Time. Trying to be patient, which is difficult. I think.
Yeah.
I don't know that I'm always a patient person. It depends on the situation and
Hmm.
what's going on. But uh, I would love to hear from you at some point about adaptation for guitar because I really miss that. And
Yeah.
yeah, I haven't come up with anything. I've tried different things, but I haven't found anything that satisfies me. So
Yeah, yes, I will. I've saved it. It was on Instagram, of course. Thank you, social media.
Okay.
Someone sent it to me. They were like, "Did you know about this gadget?" I was like, "No, this is crazy." Um, and I know you also sing, right?
Right.
Has that been affected by your Sjogrens or RA or no?
Well, initially, I didn't know that you have joints in your larynx.
Yeah, I
And
didn't
there
know that
was
either.
a time when I was having what I thought was some kind of strange symptom that I opened my mouth to sing and suddenly nothing came out. And
Mm.
I panicked. And I don't even remember how I dealt with it at the time. I just know it scared me. It scared me because I thought,
Mm-hmm.
if that's the primary instrument of humankind, the first instrument had to be singing.
Yeah.
Uh, but at any rate, I did see an ENT and he did the scope and looked at my vocal cords, and he said, just stick with what you're doing for your RA treatment. And then he did send me to a voice coach who gave me some exercises to do. And eventually I just kind of persevered and
Hmm.
kept going. And I don't really feel much in the way of effects on that now. So I'm grateful for that. Very grateful.
That's
Oh,
really good.
yeah. Also, I was just wanted to add that singing and playing instruments has been a, a joy for me my whole life. And my husband and I do music together. We have a couple of friends that we do music together with, and it brings me such joy. It's a big, I don't know if you want to call it a coping thing with RA,
Yeah.
but it is. It's so uplifting. I have a little logo on one of my bags that I carry to carry my music in, and it says, "Music is what feelings sound like."
That's your thing on your when you turn your camera off, that shows up. Yeah, yeah.
I didn't know if I might need to change that, but at any rate,
No, it's great.
it's so true. It's just so true because sometimes what you can't express in words, you can't express in instrumental music or even vocal. Like you were talking about the difference between speaking and singing.
Hmm.
You can express emotion in music, feelings, just a lot of things
Yeah.
with that. So if anyone is musical at all, at least listen to music, you know?
And yeah, that's where the adapting comes in. So on the one hand, adapting can mean I'm going to find a new way to do the same activity. So let's say the activity is piano. I'm going to find, and what I love about piano is that, is the sound, the intrinsic, joy of just the music. And I'm going to adapt. I'm going to maybe find a piano that has keys that are like closer together, like maybe a keyboard versus like a big grand piano, or things that don't require as much range of motion. That's one adaptation. Another one is to say like my limitations are such that I cannot physically play this piano right now. Like let's say an example of somebody who's paralyzed, completely paralyzed. Um, well, they could still find adaptation because they could maybe do some way of like eye tracking technology that maybe allows you to quote unquote press the keys, but you're not gonna be able to do it the same way and connect the same way that your brain is used to. Like you have these neural pathways of like, I'm playing the piano, I'm moving my fingers. Um, and then there's also, sorry, I'm kind of rambling, but in the course, I did want to point out that we have this Thrive framework. Each letter of Thrive stands for a different element that we go over in the self-paced course and in the support group. And the V stands for values and valued activities. And that has been one of the most really fun ones to talk about and really deep ones to talk about in the groups, right? Because we talk about there's ways of changing the activity and adapting if it's let's say music, but there's also so if you can't do it the way that's pleasurable to you anymore and you can't, none of the adaptations have worked, then what I recommend is looking at what is it about that activity that I value. Is
Mm.
it just the joy of music? Is it the social connection when you're doing it in a group? Really breaking it down and then seeing if there's an alternative activity that you could choose or a way of modifying it so that you're like, say, composing music versus playing music. It's really two different skills, but maybe you could discover that you actually really love that. Or in my case, it'd be swing dancing. Sometimes my body wouldn't allow me to partner dance, which is one of my favorite parts about it is the dancing part. But I also can go to a swing dance and enjoy the social part. I could also talk to the DJ. I could do it. I could DJ a set. I could do so many, you know what I'm saying? So that, I mean, I know you know what I'm saying because you've lived through this.
Yeah.
So I think there's a stage where people get stubborn, and that stubbornness can be a really good quality where you're like, no, I'm just going to wait till I can find the right thing that's going to allow me to do everything I used to do, my old life. I'm going to get my old life back. Then there's a stage where you're like, okay, actually, now I'm going to have a new kind of stubbornness to say, I'm not going to let this disease stop me from enjoying this thing, even if I can't do it the same way. Right? Does
Yeah.
that resonate? Sorry, that was like a million thoughts.
No,
You're
that's
used to it.
absolutely true. Absolutely true.
Yeah. I love that you do it with your husband too. Sorry, I actually forgot that you do it with your husband. That's really cute.
Well,
And
it
like,
is, and it's a whole different thing. I mean, I do a lot of stuff on my own without him, but when we do it together, there's that, you have a special relationship with that person in your
mm-hmm.
closest. So that there's that. But then when you add a couple of more people, that is another dynamic, or
Yeah.
even more people. It's all a total different dynamic. And I still sing in the choir at church, and there's all different aspects. I'm going to throw in one more thing.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't realize this before, and I've read about it since. I've always loved languages. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I took French in high school and college and loved it, and but I found the Duolingo app.
I'm
And
on it too.
yeah, well, the thing is, I'm learning Gaelic, and it's
Oh.
very difficult. And it stems from wanting to learn to sing in Gaelic, a certain Gaelic song.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's just propelled me into something else. So now I'm not only studying Gaelic, but I'm refreshing my French, and I'm doing
Mm.
math, and I'm doing what's the other thing? Well, I'm doing music too, but that's just dabbling in something that reinforces stuff. But what I didn't know was the connection in the brain that between music and languages. So
Yeah.
literally the spot in your brain that processes both of those,
Mm-hmm.
however that is, work together. And
That's
so
really
that
cool.
was
I didn't
encouraging.
know that.
Yeah, that was encouraging to me to, well, hey, there's a lot of ways I can keep my brain active and um, avoid the aging downfalls of losing memory and so on. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that's been really fun.
I'm writing down that I'm going to look that up and maybe put some links in the show notes for people who might want to read more about that connection of music and language. That reminded me that yeah, not only are there people, I do know that like after a stroke, which we can learn a lot about how the brain works by looking at people post stroke because the strokes are sometimes very localized. So if you suddenly can't do a specific thing and your stroke was in that certain area, then you know that's what that area does, right? So although the brain is complicated, it's not just like one tiny little real estate is in charge of whatever. But I know that there's people who they can either like they can speak after a stroke, but they can't sing, like I was saying earlier, or they can like sing and not speak. It also goes with expressing yourself in writing. Sometimes they can write, but they can't speak or sing, or they can sing and write but not speak. It's just really fascinating how all that works. So you're right that it's like it's not just the singing, like the singing is musical and there's something happening when you're expressing yourself in both that tonal whatever you call it for music and linguistically. Yeah, it's really fascinating. I actually like would love to be like in another life, like I would love to be like a neuropsychologist. I think that would be so cool. um but anyway, okay, back to my little linear questions here, or my attempt to be linear. I think it's actually time to go to the rapid fire questions. So
Ah,
do you
okay.
have any best words of wisdom for people who might be newly diagnosed with an autoimmune form of arthritis like rheumatoid arthritis?
Um, yeah, well, I saw your question written down and I thought about it. Words of wisdom. Someone newly diagnosed, find a good rheumatologist. You may have to search, but I lucked out. Um, I think going to Mayo Clinic helped me find someone right away.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Researching as much as you're able, but don't overdo it too much, too fast, because it can overwhelm you.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to have good days and bad days. That's You can't escape that. That's what's going to happen. And be kind to yourself. Don't be hard on yourself. Don't, you know, just look for the things that either you're good at or you enjoy, or and magnify those somehow in your mind or in what you do. Try not to get discouraged, um, and come to Room to Thrive.
Oh, yeah. I did not pay her to say
No,
that.
not at all. Yep.
Yeah,
It's
thank you. That's so sweet. Yeah, it is a really special group. There's an alumni group that continues meeting like weekly year round, which has become really a special community. Do you have a favorite quote or inspirational saying for tough days?
Yes, I do. I have several actually. One is inscribed on this necklace that I wear
Mm,
all the time, all the
okay.
time. Never take it off. It says, "Never, never, never give up."
Mm,
That is good for me. And when sometimes you play with your jewelry, and I do, every
mm-hmm.
time I do, I'm reminded, okay, what this says. And
Yeah.
husband gave it to me years ago. I cherish it.
Oh,
The other very favorite quote I have is, "You can do this hard thing."
yeah, yeah.
It's a title of a song by my favorite singer-songwriter. And she's a great writer. She has a wonderful philosophy and outlook on life, and it shows up in all of her music. I'm
Who
overwhelmed.
is it?
Carrie Newcomer,
Okay.
and she's mostly a folk type musician, but she travels
Yes.
all over the country. She travels around the world, actually. She leads workshops, and they're geared toward meditation and how to uh, how to be present with music, and have it just fill your life and help you feel good inside. So
Yeah.
anyway, that and yeah, she's just wonderful. So
I love it. I remember you sharing that in the group,
mhm,
as well, and then we listened to it and it was like, oh, it's really powerful.
yeah,
Um, on another note, do you have a favorite arthritis gadget or tool in your toolbox? And I say here physical or metaphorical, because sometimes it's not like a physical gadget, but
yeah. Well, I mentioned the
the can open
electric can opener.
the
I
kitchen
mean,
mama one touch hands-free can opener. Yeah.
absolutely. And I get excited when I get to use it. It's funny. But I have to say I have a non-physical tool in my toolbox, if you want to call
Yeah.
it that. And that's practicing gratitude every day. I try to
Mm,
find something every day, as many as surface when I look at
mm,
something or I think about something. Practicing gratitude has given me a major tool. I
yeah.
just looking for something even in the difficult stuff, looking for something to be either, if not grateful for, but looking for something I can learn from. Maybe there's something in what has
Mm.
been a bad day that I can use later. I learn how to cope with that and use that later.
I
So
love it. I love it. It's been a great one for me as well. I know we were both on the Finch app, a self-care app that's really fun. And you can connect with friends there and like stay accountable to your goals. And I
yeah,
always thought, oh, I practice gratitude all the time. I don't need to like formally do it. Like I just in my head, I'm like, I'm grateful for this, I'm grateful for that. At dinner at night, we do like to say one thing we're thankful for each day in my family. That started with my parents when I was younger. And we do it with Charlie, my son, too. But it's been really good actually writing it down, like taking the time in the Finch app each night, I write it down. And that's actually been surprisingly impactful for me. So just in case you're listening, you're like, I'm grateful. I don't need to write it down. Try writing it down, see what happens. Maybe
Yeah, yeah, that's true.
little piece of flyby advice. Um,
Yeah.
do you have a favorite book or movie or show you've watched or read recently?
Um, Actually, yes. In fact, it's a series on Netflix, and we're watching it for the second time because the third season has just come out. And so it's called Afterlife.
Oh,
Ricky
okay.
Gervais wrote and the stars in it. Um, he his colorful, I'll call it quote, with language might bother some people, and
Mm-hmm.
there's parts of it can be depressing, um, and sometimes even gross. I mean, there's sometimes I have to do this with it,
Mm-hmm.
but the thing about it that strikes me so much is it's poignant in dealing with a really difficult life situation. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and so you watch him go through all these phases of acceptance, I guess, but he's so negative through the whole experience, and he gets to a point finally that he's starting to get it. And
Yeah.
it it's been really fun. I'll probably watch it a third time.
That's awesome. I love it when a show is rewatchable. That's like the best. Um, I like Ricky Gervais. Yeah, he can be a little crude, but he's got a really unique point of view.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
do you, okay, this is the last one, but it's kind of a big one. What does it mean to you to live a good life and thrive with rheumatic disease?
Yeah. Well, I have to say, music, that's just at
Hmm.
the top of the list. It's just part of my being. Um, well, just trying to thrive. I don't know, just putting forth the effort every day. Sometimes it's hard to get out of bed, but I say when I wake up, okay, it's a new day. What's going to present itself today that I either can enjoy or may have to just slog through? And so I do that and force myself to get up and get out of bed, even though it's painful, because it's
Mm,
always there when I wake up. And exercising to keep moving, just keep moving. I've read that
mhm,
and heard it from so many people, that even when it feels uncomfortable or difficult, just walk as far or as long as you can, 10,
mm,
15 minutes, and especially outside in nature in all the seasons that you're capable of doing, because
right.
everything is out there that feeds you, feeds your soul. Um, I don't know. I guess
Yeah.
that's all I can think of it in that regard.
No, that's great. I mean, I think being able to what I hear through that is like being, fighting to still be able to do what you love, like in your case, music, and then you know, kind of refusing to give up and saying, I'm going to get up each day, even when it hurts, and I'm going to do the best I can. I think that's a really beautiful thing for people to, to aspire to. So thank you for sharing. Thank you so much. It's always a lot of effort to share your story. So I appreciate that you went down memory lane and helped share about your diagnosis and your experience with the support groups and everything. Is there anything else you would like to share with the audience before we wrap up?
Well, I'll just say that I found out I love to travel. When I was
Oh.
working, there wasn't that much opportunity because I wasn't one to take vacations like you should when you're working.
Mhm.
But traveling since I retired, we've been on river cruises and ocean cruises, and they're so fulfilling to experience another culture and scenery, places you've never been and never thought that
Mhm.
you never would ever see in your life.
Right, right.
Um, yeah, that's the only other thing I'd throw in.
To
It's
just yeah, pursue what you love and yeah, don't put it off. Um, if you're
right.
interested in it. Yeah, I love
Because
that. Sorry, you're on the same psychic wavelength as me because I've never done a cruise, like a real cruise. Or never done a river cruise. I've done like one cruise before for like a friend's bachelorette party like 15 years ago. But I was just looking at river cruises. I was like, this is so cool because I get a little claustrophobic out on like the open seas. I like get like that weird like fear of just like I feel like I'm unmoored. Like where am I? I want to be grounded on the land. But a river cruise, at least you can see the land on either side, right?
Yep.
So yeah.
Yep. Yeah. And then I think there's more stops along the way of
Yes.
towns and cities, smaller villages that you're not going to maybe encounter on a big cruise, and talk to people that live there, the natives, and just strike up conversations, mostly in English. I embarrassed myself once in France.
Oh boy.
I've been practicing, do you speak English? I mean, that was going to be my primary thing, because if I panic and can't think of what I want to say in French. Anyway, so what do? I ask him in French, do you speak French? And then I was so
Oh my
embarrassed.
gosh.
I was so embarrassed because he just goes, oui. Oh, what did I do that for? But anyway.
That's so cute. That's so cute. Oh man. Oh, that's better than mispronouncing, or better than putting the wrong word in there and like accidentally saying like I hate France or something.
Yeah, exactly. Or do you know where my foot is? I don't know.
Yeah, totally. Well, thank you so much again for coming on and taking the time. And I know I usually ask where people are on social media, but I know you're not really if you want to share any of your handles, you can, but you don't have to. It's totally up to you.
I am on Facebook. I don't use it a lot, but I can be found there.
Okay, perfect. Awesome. Well, thank you so much again. And I'll see you in the Room to Thrive group later this week, but we'll say goodbye for now.
Okay, thank you so much for this opportunity. I'm very happy and excited to do this.
Thank you. I'm so glad you were able to do it. So we'll talk to you later.
Okay.
Thank you so much for listening to another episode of the Arthritis Life podcast. This episode is brought to you by Rheum to Thrive, an educational program I created from scratch to help you go from overwhelmed to confident, supported, and connected in a matter of weeks. You can go through the pre-recorded course on your own, or you can take the course along with a support group. Learn more at the link in my show notes, or you can always go to www.myarthritislife.net. And if you like this podcast, I would be so honored if you took the time to rate and review it. I also encourage you to share it with anyone you know who might benefit from it. I also wanted to remind you that you can find full transcripts, videos, and detailed show notes with hyperlinks for each episode on my website, www.myarthritislife.net. If you have any ideas for future episodes, or if you want to share your story or wisdom on the podcast, just shoot me an email at info@myarthritislife.net. I can't wait to hear from you.